Bryan Kohberger's thought prison walls could cage his body, but not his mind. Months after his conviction, the families of his victims began receiving chilling messages typed in red ink, signed only with clues only he could have known. Each note carried a hidden code, a whisper from behind bars that turned grief into fresh terror. What no one realized was that these weren't random taunts, they were part of a plan years in the making, a final game of control that proved even locked away. Bryan Kohberger's was never truly silent. Bryan Kohberger sat in his cold, dimly lit cell, where silence hung like fog. The trial was over, the sentence final, and the world had moved on, or at least that's what everyone believed. The families of his victims tried to rebuild their lives, clinging to the fragile peace that justice was supposed to bring. But peace was something Kohberger's had never given. Deep within those prison walls, something sinister began to take shape. Guards noticed how he spent hours hunched over old newspapers, studying them as if they held hidden messages. He requested blank paper, legal pads, and pens far more often than other inmates. What began as an ordinary routine soon felt like an obsession. One morning, the mother of one victim found an envelope on her doorstep. It carried no return address, only a smudged postmark from a nearby town. Inside was a single sheet of white paper, typed neatly in red ink. The words were strange and cold, strung together in a way that made no sense at first glance. But the final sentence froze her blood. Justice is a circle, not a line. She turned the paper over and found a faint symbol, one that resembled the initials of her lost child. Shaking, she called the police. At first, investigators suspected a cruel hoax, but the letters, paper, and typeface matched the supplies used inside Kohberger's prison. When another family received a letter just days later, the coincidences grew impossible to ignore. Each message carried a different phrase, short, unsettling, and cryptic. One read, "The walls remember." Another said, "Light doesn't reach where truth hides." Every envelope was postmarked from a different nearby town, making it harder to trace. The media didn't know about it yet, but whispers began spreading among law enforcement that Kohberger had somehow found a way to communicate with the outside world. Prison officials searched his cell, tearing apart his bedding, checking the floorboards, and even scanning his mail logs. They found nothing unusual, no hidden phone, no paper fragments, no smuggled contraband. But one officer swore he saw faint writing on the inside of Kohberger's mirror, invisible unless caught at the right angle. When the light hit just right, it revealed a message scratched faintly into the glass. "They'll read soon." That was the moment investigators realized the nightmare wasn't over. Somehow, even from behind bars, Bryan Kohberger had found a way to reach the people who feared him most. The investigation into the mysterious letters grew rapidly, spreading from local authorities to federal agents. Each envelope seemed to taunt the families, arriving without pattern or warning. Some came folded neatly, others crumpled and stained, as if handled by several people before being sent. Inside, the words were brief but haunting messages that hinted at memories only the killer could know. What unsettled investigators most was the precision. Each letter carried details from the original case that were never made public, pieces of information that only Bryan Kohberger should have known. The question was how those details had escaped the prison's strict communication system. Officials suspended all his visitation rights, confiscated his writing materials, and placed him under constant surveillance. Yet the letters continued to arrive. At first, they were thought to be delayed mail, sent before his restrictions tightened. But the timing didn't add up. Some messages referenced recent news articles about the victims' families, information published only days before the letters appeared. It became clear that someone was helping him, someone with access to both the prison and the outside world. The families began to live in quiet fear again. Some refused to open any mail without police present. Others changed addresses entirely, desperate to escape the psychological grip that Kohberger seemed to maintain. The emotional damage was just as real as the crime itself. Media outlets started catching whispers of the story, speculating about a secret network of sympathizers who might be working on his behalf. Online forums lit up with theories, some claiming the letters were fake, others convinced that Kohberger had managed to hack the system from inside his cell. A new clue emerged when investigators examined the envelopes more closely. Hidden under layers of adhesive were faint fingerprints that didn't belong to Kohberger. They belonged to a prison staff member, a maintenance worker with no apparent connection to him. But under questioning, the worker broke down, admitting he had been delivering notes slipped under his cart in exchange for small payments sent to his family through an anonymous account. The messages had been written on prison stationery, typed using an old typewriter from the library area. Kohberger had somehow manipulated a simple act of trust into a channel of control. Even stripped of freedom, he had managed to turn the walls of his cell into a tool of fear, proving that his influence reached far beyond iron bars. Federal agents soon realized the prison mail scheme was only one piece of something far more disturbing. The typed letters had stopped, but their message continued now through the internet. A private support group for the victims' families suddenly began receiving anonymous posts filled with cryptic words and eerie patterns. Each message seemed to echo the same phrases found in the letters, as if Kohberger's voice had simply changed form. The moderators deleted the posts, but new ones appeared within hours, always using new accounts that vanished after a single post. Forensic experts analyzed the text and discovered an unsettling pattern. The writing style matched perfectly with Kohberger's known essays and college submissions. Investigators traced the origin of the post to a nearby town, close enough to the prison that the connection couldn't be ignored. They suspected someone outside was acting as his messenger again. When agents searched through the prison's security footage, they noticed a subtle detail. Every few days, a certain delivery truck appeared at the loading dock. The same driver, the same schedule. Hidden inside the truck's cargo was a smuggled phone, taped beneath one of the pallets. The driver confessed that he had been paid anonymously through cryptocurrency, his only instruction being to deliver certain packages to an unnamed inmate. When the device was found, agents discovered dozens of encrypted messages, each beginning with the same chilling phrase, "Tell them I still remember." The phone contained fragments of text that had been cut and pasted from Kohberger's old writings, stitched together like coded poetry. The FBI's cyber team decrypted some of the messages and found coordinates leading to wooded areas near the victim's former college campus. When investigators searched the sites, they found nothing physical, just tree carvings and stones arranged in strange patterns, possibly placed there by followers copying his cryptic messages. The story exploded in the media. News channels replayed every discovery, turning the case into a nationwide obsession. The families, already broken from years of grief, faced a new nightmare, one that lived online and could not be silenced. The prison tightened its systems again, installing signal blockers, isolating Kohberger, and banning all external shipments. But it didn't matter anymore. His words had escaped the walls, spreading through the internet like a shadow that couldn't be caught. The FBI's forensic linguists began assembling every message, letter, and online post into a single database, searching for connections. Patterns soon appeared: hidden codes buried in punctuation, misspelled words that spelled out other phrases when rearranged, and number sequences pointing to dates. Those dates matched the anniversaries of the murders, each one marked by a new message. It became clear that none of this was random. Kohberger's had designed a ritual of remembrance, a way to reassert his control on the days that meant the most to the victims' families. He wasn't trying to contact them directly. He was orchestrating fear from a distance, keeping his name alive in the headlines. In his cell, guards noticed he seemed eerily calm. He no longer asked for paper or pens. He simply stared at the ceiling during count, lips moving as if reciting something only he could hear. When investigators searched his belongings again, they discovered a notebook hidden inside a hollowed-out law textbook. Its pages contained intricate grids filled with numbers and letters. Analysts realized it was an encryption system, a key that matched the codes found in the messages. Each cipher referenced a phrase he once wrote for a college paper about a concept called the reversal effect. In it, Kohberger's theorized that human fear could evolve into fascination if repeated often enough. He was testing that idea, turning public horror into curiosity. As experts worked to decode every pattern, the prison received a new wave of media attention. News anchors speculated about the so-called reversal experiment, portraying Kohberger as a manipulative genius. The very thing he wanted was happening again: attention. Every story reignited his presence in the public eye. The victims' families demanded complete isolation, insisting the prison strip away every possible way for him to communicate. Authorities finally moved him to a high-security unit known for total silence: no mail, no visitors, no contact with anyone outside his cell. But even then, reports surfaced that guards heard faint tapping sounds coming from his room late at night, a rhythmic pattern repeating over and over. Some said it matched Morse code, though no one could prove it. Whether it was a desperate attempt to stay heard or just the echo of obsession, the fear it created was enough. Kohberger had achieved what he wanted most: to be remembered. Months passed in uneasy silence after Bryan Kohberger's transfer to the isolation unit. The world assumed the story had finally ended. The victims' families withdrew from the spotlight, avoiding reporters and shutting down their social media accounts. For the first time in years, the air felt still. Yet beneath that quiet, investigators continued to monitor unusual online activity. An encrypted forum began circulating coded posts similar to Kohberger's earlier patterns. Each message appeared briefly before vanishing, always posted at 3 a.m. The writing was unmistakably his style: precise, detached, and unsettlingly intelligent. Despite being completely cut off from communication, his digital voice had somehow returned. Then, out of nowhere, a package arrived at a major news network. Inside was a single sheet of paper with no handwriting, no visible marks. Only when held under ultraviolet light did faint words appear. "You kept watching." The phrase sent chills through everyone who read it. For investigators, it confirmed one thing: someone outside the prison still had access to his private writings. When they traced the paper's texture and composition, it matched the notebook confiscated from Kohberger months earlier. That meant copies of his encrypted pages had escaped long before his communication privileges were removed. Whoever had them was continuing his work, spreading his legacy in fragments. The FBI eventually identified several anonymous accounts linked to a single digital wallet that had transferred small payments to the same prison employees once caught in the smuggling operation. The discovery proved that Kohberger's manipulation had extended deeper than anyone suspected. His influence had turned the case into an ongoing game of control played long after his voice should have been silenced. The public began to realize that what terrified people most wasn't what he did, but how he managed to linger, unseen yet present. By the time the investigation closed, the prison had introduced new nationwide restrictions on digital devices and inmate communication. Still, the damage couldn't be undone. Kohberger's story became a dark reminder that some crimes continue long after conviction, surviving through obsession and fear. Years later, internet users still reported seeing strange coded phrases appear online, always referencing the same idea: memory that refuses to fade. Whether those messages came from followers or from something he set in motion before his isolation, no one ever discovered. The case remained closed, but the silence that followed felt more haunting than noise.